This isn't just a vessel, it's a geopolitical event waiting to happen. In a world desperate for energy, one of South America's poorest nations has just activated a single machine that can pump out 250,000 barrels of oil every single day. This is the One Guyana FPSO. Its arrival is triggering a seismic shift in global power, challenging the dominance of old-school oil giants and rewriting the rules of geopolitics. But is this a story of unbelievable prosperity or a cautionary tale of the infamous resource curse? For decades, Guyana was a country defined by sugar and rice, its economy fragile, its future uncertain. Today, it's home to the most explosive oil boom of the 21st century. A boom so huge it's forcing superpowers to rethink their strategies and a desperate neighbor to beat the drums of war. By the end of this video, you'll understand how this one vessel, the crown jewel of an unfathomable deep-sea treasure, isn't just changing a nation, it's changing the world. To really get how massive this is, we need to rewind the clock to a Guyana the world barely knew existed. For most of its history, Guyana was a quiet corner of the globe. It's a small English-speaking nation of less than 800,000 people, tucked away on the northeastern coast of South America, feeling culturally more Caribbean than anything else. Its nickname, the Land of Many Waters, paints a picture of a country covered in vast rivers and dense rainforests, with most people living on a low-lying coastal plain. But for decades, it was also a land of serious economic hardship. Before 2015, the Guyanese economy rested on three rickety pillars: sugar, rice, and bauxite mining. These were industries from a different time, constantly rocked by volatile prices that left the nation in a state of permanent uncertainty. Generations of Guyanese left to find work elsewhere, creating a huge diaspora and an economy that leaned heavily on money sent home from relatives in New York, Toronto, and London. The country's GDP was tiny, its infrastructure was crumbling, and its politics were often paralyzed by deep-seated ethnic divisions. By almost any measure, it was one of the poorest nations in the Western Hemisphere, a place of incredible natural beauty, but very limited horizons. Big oil companies had explored its waters before. They saw the geological promise, the hints of a system that connected to West Africa, which tore away millions of years ago. But the water was deep, the tech was expensive, and the results were always a bust. Well after well came up dry. It seemed like Guyana's potential would stay just that. Potential buried thousands of feet below the sea. And then there was the shadow to the west, Venezuela. For over a century, Venezuela has aggressively claimed nearly 2/3 of Guyana's territory, a huge resource-rich region called the Essequibo. This claim, thrown out by an international tribunal back in 1899, has been a constant source of tension. Venezuela, a founding member of OPEC and once an oil titan, used its power to scare off investors and block any attempt by Guyana to explore its own land. That was the Guyana of yesterday, a nation defined by what it didn't have: wealth, global influence, and economic security. Its future was dictated by the price of sugar and the mood of its powerful, unstable neighbor. That reality seemed permanent. But beneath the waves, a geological secret worth trillions was waiting, and one company was about to find the key. The story of Guyana's transformation doesn't start in a parliament or a bank. It starts with a drill bit tearing through the deep, dark waters of the Atlantic. The turning point came in May 2015. A consortium led by ExxonMobil, with partners Hess and China's CNOOC, announced a discovery that blew the industry away. Their Liza-1 well, drilled in a massive 6.6 million acre offshore block called Stabroek, had struck a massive reservoir of high-quality oil. This wasn't just another find, it was a basin opener. It proved a petroleum system of almost unbelievable scale existed off Guyana's coast. The first find was huge, but it was just the beginning. What came next was one of the most successful drilling campaigns in modern history. The consortium's ships moved from one spot to the next, hitting black gold again and again and again. Payara, Snook, Turbot, Ranger, Hammerhead. The names of the discoveries became a drumbeat of escalating fortune. The Stabroek Block wasn't just an oil field, it was a geological freak of nature. The sheer amount of recoverable oil was hard to comprehend, first estimated in the billions of barrels and constantly being revised up. Today, the official estimate is over 11 billion barrels, and even that might be low. To put that in perspective, this one block holds more oil than the entire proven reserves of countries like the United Kingdom or Norway. The world snapped to attention. Guyana, a country that produced zero oil, was suddenly being described with phrases like paradigm shifting and world class. The discovery reignited the old legend of El Dorado, the lost city of gold. Only this time, the treasure was black, and it was very, very real. The speed of development was just as stunning as the discoveries. In an industry where it can take a decade to go from discovery to production, Exxon and its partners moved at warp speed. The first project, Liza Phase 1, started pumping oil in December 2019, just over 4 years after the first well was drilled. Suddenly, Guyana was an oil producer. The Liza Destiny FPSO, the first vessel, began pumping over 100,000 barrels per day. It was followed by the Liza Unity in 2022, adding another 220,000. Then came the Prosperity FPSO in late 2023. In just 5 years, a nation that had never produced commercial oil was pumping over 500,000 barrels a day, a number that surged past 600,000 by 2024. But even that was just the warm-up act. The consortium had saved its biggest project for last, a development called Yellowtail, designed to tap one of the block's largest reservoirs. And to do that, they needed a vessel bigger and more powerful than anything that had come before. They needed a Titan. They needed the One Guyana. So what exactly is an FPSO? The letters stand for Floating Production, Storage, and Offloading Vessel. But that name doesn't even begin to do it justice. Imagine a colossal factory, a high-tech refinery, and a giant storage tank all squeezed into a single ship the size of a city block, permanently anchored in water nearly 2 kilometers deep. These things are the heart of any deep-water oil operation. They're connected by a web of subsea pipes to dozens of wells on the ocean floor. The FPSO pulls up a raw mix of oil, gas, and water, separates it, processes the oil for export, and then stores it in its massive hull, waiting for tankers to pull up alongside and take it to markets around the world. It's a self-contained industrial ecosystem floating in the middle of the ocean, and the One Guyana is the apex predator of this ecosystem. Built in Singapore by the Dutch company SBM Offshore, the One Guyana arrived in April 2025. It is the fourth and by far the largest FPSO in the Stabroek Block. Its stats are just staggering. The vessel is built to produce 250,000 barrels of oil per day, 250,000 barrels, every single day. To put that number in context, that is more than the entire daily output of countries like Equatorial Guinea or Gabon. This one ship outproduces entire nations. It's a floating oil state. The scale is just mind-boggling. The One Guyana can also process 450 million cubic feet of natural gas and inject 300,000 barrels of water per day to maintain pressure in the reservoir. Its hull can store up to 2 million barrels of crude. That's a floating reserve equal to the daily oil consumption of a country like Spain. A key reason it was built so fast is SBM Offshore's innovative Fast Forward registered trademark program. Think of it like a highly advanced set of industrial Legos. They use a standardized hull design that can be quickly adapted for different projects with modular equipment on top. This slashes construction time, which is a massive advantage in such an expensive industry. In August 2025, it became official. First oil was achieved from the One Guyana FPSO, marking the start of the Yellowtail project. With its activation, Guyana's total offshore production capacity shot past 900,000 barrels per day, putting the country firmly on the path to crossing the 1 million barrel per day threshold around 2027. The crude from this behemoth is even being sold under a new patriotic name, Golden Arrowhead Crude, a nod to Guyana's national flag. The One Guyana isn't just another piece of equipment, it's the engine of an economic revolution. It is the machine that turns subsea geology into national wealth. Those 250,000 barrels a day aren't just numbers on a screen. They're the fuel for a national budget that has exploded, funding for new roads and hospitals, and the source of a wealth fund meant to secure the nation's future. But with this flood of new wealth comes a flood of new problems. The effect of the Stabroek Block on Guyana's economy hasn't been a rising tide. It's been a tsunami of cash. Before oil started flowing in 2019, Guyana's annual GDP was about $5 billion. By 2025, it's projected to smash past $20 billion. The growth has been unreal. The IMF reported that Guyana's real GDP grew by an insane 62.3% in 2022, the highest in the world. While that's settled down a bit, projected growth for 2025 is still around 10 to 14%, a number that would make any finance minister on earth jealous. This explosion of growth is reshaping everything. The 2025 national budget is a record $6.6 billion, with over a third of it coming directly from oil money. That cash is fueling an infrastructure boom like nothing the country has ever seen. A new bridge over the Demerara River, a highway connecting the coast to the Brazilian border, and new regional hospitals are all being built with oil money. A massive gas-to-energy project plans to use offshore gas to slash the country's sky-high electricity costs by 50%, potentially kicking off a wave of new industry. To handle all this money and try to avoid the dreaded resource curse, where sudden wealth leads to corruption and kills other parts of the economy, Guyana created a Natural Resource Fund, NRF. It's a sovereign wealth fund, like the one in Norway, meant to save and invest oil money for the future. As of mid-2025, the fund had already grown to about $3.3 billion. The government is already pulling money from the fund to pay for its big plans, and while it's all legal, a huge debate is raging about how much to spend now versus how much to save for later. The boom is also creating jobs. A local content policy requires companies to hire Guyanese people and use local businesses. Over 2,000 local businesses are now working in the oil and gas sector, and Guyanese citizens make up more than 67% of the industry's workforce. But this economic tsunami has dangerous undercurrents. That whole blessing or curse question is playing out in real time. Despite the mind-blowing GDP numbers, a lot of people haven't felt the benefits yet. A World Bank report noted that nearly half the population still lives in poverty, on less than $5.50 a day. You can see the new wealth in the high-rise buildings going up in the capital, Georgetown, but you see it a lot less in rural villages. There are also early signs of Dutch disease, where the oil boom makes everything else like agriculture less competitive. With oil already dominating exports, Guyana's economy is becoming dangerously hooked on a single commodity, leaving it exposed to a notoriously volatile market. Inflation is a constant threat, and there's a serious housing shortage. The country is changing faster than it can adapt. The question hanging over Guyana is whether it can build a strong, diverse, and fair economy before the oil runs out, or if this incredible opportunity will be wasted. And this internal challenge is matched by the external dangers this new wealth has brought to the surface. The One Guyana FPSO isn't just an economic story, it's a geopolitical one. By pushing Guyana towards 1 million barrels of oil per day, this one ship is shaking up the global energy map and forcing a power shift in South America. To put this in perspective, producing 1 million barrels a day puts Guyana in the same league as OPEC members like Algeria or Angola. But here's the crazy part. On a per capita basis, with just 800,000 people, Guyana is set to become the world's largest oil producer per person, blowing past petro-states like Kuwait or the UAE. This turns Guyana from a geopolitical nobody into a serious player, a new, reliable source of non-OPEC, non-Russian oil at a time of global chaos. But this newfound power has dangerously reignited a century-old conflict. To the west, Venezuela, a country in total economic collapse but with a big military, is watching Guyana's rise with pure envy and aggression. The discovery of trillions of dollars in oil right in the waters of the territory Venezuela claims has brought their old grievance roaring back to life. In late 2023, Nicolas Maduro's government held a bogus referendum to annex the Essequibo region and has been running a campaign of intimidation ever since, including military drills near the border. In May 2025, Venezuela even planned to hold symbolic elections for officials to govern the territory, a move Guyana's President Irfan Ali called a full frontal assault on Guyana's sovereignty. The International Court of Justice has ordered Venezuela to back off, but Caracas just ignores the court. Guyana's oil wealth, however, changes the entire game. The country is no longer poor and alone. It's now a strategic partner to the world's most powerful corporations and their home countries. The government has built stronger ties with the US and the UK, who now see Guyana's stability as vital to their own energy security. But the geopolitical drama is also playing out inside the consortium itself. Let this sink in for a second. The Stabroek Block is operated by American supermajor ExxonMobil, 45%. China's state-owned SUNOK holds 25%, and the last 30%, held by Hess, was the prize in a massive $53 billion takeover by another American giant, Chevron. That deal was dramatically challenged by Exxon, which claimed it had the right to buy Hess's stake first. This kicked off a 20-month legal battle between the two biggest oil companies in America. In July 2025, an arbitration court finally sided with Chevron, letting the deal close and giving Chevron its ticket into the world's hottest oil play. So on a single oil block off the coast of tiny Guyana, you have two American behemoths, Exxon and Chevron, working side by side with a Chinese state-owned enterprise. The Stabroek Block is a perfect miniature of the great power competition between the US and China, a fragile, high-stakes partnership where corporate greed and national strategy are tangled together. Control over these barrels isn't just about profit, it's about global influence. The One Guyana FPSO, therefore, isn't just pumping oil, it's pumping geopolitical capital. It's funding a nation's defense, supplying energy to Western markets, and it's the grand prize in a complex dance between the world's reigning superpower and its rising challenger. The One Guyana FPSO, anchored in the deep Atlantic, is more than an engineering marvel. It is the symbol of a nation's violent and dramatic birth onto the world stage. It's the pivot point where a poor country was handed a lottery ticket so valuable it could either build a paradise or tear the nation apart. The journey from a land of sugar and rice to an oil superpower has been shockingly fast. In less than a decade, Guyana has had to deal with challenges other nations get generations to figure out. How to build a wealth fund, how to manage public hope, how to deter an aggressive neighbor, and how to balance being a fossil fuel giant with its own environmental promises. The ultimate question remains, blessing or curse? Will Guyana be a model for the world, a nation that uses its wealth to create a sustainable and fair future for all its people? Or will it follow the tragic path of so many other resource-rich countries and fall victim to corruption, inequality, and conflict? The outcome isn't written in stone. It will be decided in its parliament, in the boardrooms of its wealth fund, in its new schools, and in the hearts of its people. The One Guyana has unleashed a flood of wealth, and with it, a flood of both possibility and peril. What happens in this small South American nation isn't just a story about oil. It's a story about the future and how a single discovery, harnessed by a single machine, can change the destiny of a nation and the balance of global power forever. The story of the One Guyana is far from over. The challenges are just as huge as the opportunities. So what do you think is the biggest risk Guyana faces? The internal struggle to manage its wealth, or the external geopolitical storm it's sailing into? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.